Hi everyone, thank you so much. Thank you to Denise, thank you to our panelists, and really actually thank you very much to everybody who's participated over the last 2 days. We are in the final sort of furlong, as they say, but it's really my great pleasure to introduce our keynote closing address, Edward. Edward Lucas will be known to many of you in the room. He's a journalist, he's an author, he's a consultant on European and transatlantic security, but I think that doesn't really give the game away as to how much Edward has done over the past, I'd say years, but I think it may be decades, if you'll forgive me, in raising the alarm on many of the issues that we've discussed over the last couple of days. And he has been a supporter and a friend to many who've been trying to challenge these issues. So, Edward, I invite you to give the closing remarks.
Thanks so much, Susan. I've been asked to use this one. And it's a huge honour to follow so many distinguished speakers and have an audience like this. And in a way, it's been a wonderful conference, but I'm actually paralysed with shame and grief that it's necessary for us to do this at all. Every one of us here in the hall has much better things to do than this. We should be out there exercising our media freedoms, exposing injustice, holding the powerful to account, or engaging in polemic or speculation or even satire, because that's quite dangerous too, rather than being huddled in here on such a beautiful sunny day trying to defend our right to do anything at all. Now, anyone here from the FCDO may want to leave at this point. I thought of starting by responding to yesterday's opening keynote speech from Chris Elmore, but there are two reasons why I'm not going to do that. One is that despite 8 emails and 4 phone calls since yesterday afternoon, and 4 phone calls today, I've still been unable to extract the text of his remarks from the FCDO. I don't know whether it was classified as secret or some other reason, but it does strike me that if our government is really serious about championing media freedom internationally, it could start by making life a bit simpler and easier for journalists trying to do their job here at home. But another reason is that it would be too easy. Criticising this government on media freedom is like shooting fish in a barrel. I think everyone here understands the dimensions of the gaping say-do gap between what this government said, or particularly what it said in opposition and what it still says now, and what they've actually done. It should be a source of great shame to every British citizen that this country is not safe for journalists who live here who want to criticise the Chinese Communist Party, the Kremlin, or the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Committee. Our police and our security service are not doing their job in protecting the right to be a critical journalist on that front. And perhaps even more simple and more glaring, the failure to get to grips with slaps. It's part of a much broader failure to understand and deal with the threats to media freedom in particular and to democracy in general. And the really galling thing about this is we have a ready-made bill which was about to go into law if it hadn't been for the general election in the summer of 2024. It's all there, it just needs parliamentary time. It's something that has cross-party support. And it wouldn't involve spending a lot of taxpayers' money. It would involve interfering with other people who like spending a lot of money, the very rich and powerful people who spend money in order to buy political influence, silence criticism, escape scrutiny. And it would also, of course, and make even more money by doing so. And of course, on that subject, I should mention lawyers, or perhaps I won't. And I could talk entirely hypothetically about dodgy peerages and the ethics of unleashing a notoriously oligarch-friendly attack dog PR firm on journalists who ask awkward questions. But having fought one slap during my time at The Economist, which cost me 6 months of my life and cost us, or rather our insurer, £500,000, money very well spent. I have to say there's nothing more fun than spending other people's money in a good cause, but I've no desire to do it again. So just for the record, if there are any lawyers or any journalists here, all members of the House of Lords are saints, all private intelligence companies and all PR firms are completely ethical, all media lawyers adhere strictly to their codes of professional ethics, and there is no suggestion of wrongdoing, past, present or future, by any of these scumbags. Sorry, that was a misprint. It should, humbugs. No, that was a misprint too. Sorry, whatever. See you in court. And by the way, I don't have any data on any of you, so don't bother trying a DSAR. But what I want to do instead is to encourage us to think a little bit more broadly about the problem. Now, most people here are either media practitioners or in some work somewhere in the media ecosystem, and that's not just tremendous fun, but a great privilege, and I speak from experience here. My mother is 96, and she still wonders when I'm going to get a proper job. But most people aren't journalists, and most of the people we need to persuade on all these issues are not journalists, and they may not even like journalists very much. So if we campaign solely on the basis that journalists are wonderful and that media freedom is ipso facto good, we are making a strong argument, but one that has limited appeal. So just very briefly, I want to suggest that we broaden the argument a bit, starting with national security. Now, I'm delighted, is Katya here, Media Freedom Ambassador? Yes, wonderful, okay. So, sorry, you may want to put some earplugs in at this point. But I am delighted you're here because Finland is perhaps the prime example in Europe or even in the world of a comprehensive model of national defence. It involves not just the whole of government, but the whole of society. And if you live in the Finnish neighbourhood, you need that, and that's not because of Sweden being next door to you. But it means that it doesn't compromise journalistic freedom. Finland scores, I think, rather higher than Britain does in international media freedom indices. But it does mean that Finnish journalists think about national security, and it means that the guardians of national security think about journalism. Some of you may know that Russia has spent the last year conducting a vociferous information campaign against Finland, trying to depict it seriously as a hotbed of neo-Nazism, the unrepentant perpetrator of horrific war crimes, and a hellhole of repressive, ultra-woke persecution of God-fearing children, and much more besides. And the remarkable thing about this is the Finnish reaction, or rather the lack of it, because Finns understand that information is part of Russia's sub-threshold arsenal, and it's used as a weapon. And sometimes the best response is to say nothing. So Finnish journalists don't demand that their decision makers respond promptly to these disgraceful Russian attacks, nor do they give them these attacks huge prominence. There's no huge competition in the Finnish media ecosystem to get the scoop and make the splash, because that would be playing into the Russians' hands. Editorial decision making isn't just about commercial and professional competition, it also fits into a broader picture. And however much media freedom we enjoy, it won't last for long if our national security system fails us. And Finnish decision makers also understand that the information ecosystem is part of national defence. That means, for example, that public broadcasting is important. Treating journalists properly is important, like answering their emails. In fact, as a foreign journalist writing about Finland, I find it easier to get information from the Finnish authorities than I do from my own government here. So I really do hope that the Finnish-British cooperation will be fruitful, at least, and instructive, at least for the British side of it. Finland also has excellent soft target protection, not just for journalists, but for campaigners and academics and think tankers and others who may be targeted by the repressive organs of the Russian Federation, because it's vital for national security that the information system works without intimidation or distortion. Now, I can see Katya's already squirming with embarrassment, and she'd much rather if we switch the conversation to something else, like, did you know that Santa Claus comes from Lapland? That's the Finnish message discipline. But the point is, there is a really strong national security argument for having a strong information ecosystem. You don't need to love journalists as a species or to admire the editorial stance of big news outlets to believe that you don't want hostile state actors and other enemies spreading disinformation and playing divide and rule in the stress points and the fractures of our societies. Now, I'm not saying this is front and center. You can't combat Putinism by Putinizing your own society, but I think that it's an argument that needs to be made more strongly. And a second and even bigger one, just briefly, involves morals and ethics. Because we're never going to establish long-term media freedom just through legislative means, any more than we can expect to do it through the operation of the free market. Yes, both good laws and solid business models are important, probably even necessary conditions, but they're not sufficient. We can't outsource our freedom to lawmakers and regulators any more than we can rely on the profit motive. The most powerful pressure, even more than the threat of criminal sanctions and lawsuits and losing money, is normative. So media freedom is not just about functionality, staying in business and out of court, it's about right and wrong. The buck stops with us, both as consumers and producers of information and as citizens. Now, some of you, this is an example of how sad my life is. The best book I've read recently is by the Swedish Psychological Defense Agency. It's a 30-chapter epic tome written by a British professor called James Pammont at Lund University on how to defend democracy. And it covers all sorts of aspects, but the thing that really struck me was chapter 30 on morals, and it contains this very simple sentence: to counter disinformation is to engage in moral reasoning. Anyone who wants this, just ping me a link, ping me on LinkedIn, and I'll send you a link to the free download. And the key point here is that we have to introduce, or perhaps even reintroduce, a normative dimension to all this. It's bad to tell lies. It's bad to repeat them. It's bad to bully people. It's bad to stay silent in the face of injustice. Now, as journalists, we sometimes get quite uncomfortable about discussions like this. We think it may be a bit hypocritical, and people may poke people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. But we need to show, I think, that our ideas about right and wrong are not just about narrow fact-checking, whether we get the billions and the millions right, which I've always found rather difficult, or about a sort of tick-box approach to journalist ethics. We are, in the end, moral beings operating in a moral universe, and that applies to our professional lives as well as our personal ones. And if we choose to abdicate from moral reasoning and say, well, in the end, it's just a story, that's in itself a moral choice. And so this applies both in our public and our professional lives to us as media practitioners, but also it's pressure we can exert elsewhere. It's pressure we can exert on public figures and on the lawyers who work for them. It should be shameful to engage in slaps, whether your person bringing the slap or the lawyer doing it. This way lies professional and social oblivion. Now, my phone is buzzing, and I suspect it may be that the FCDO, perhaps watching the live stream, has finally mastered that extremely complicated operational technique of copy, paste, and send. And that perhaps should be my final point. Just as there are no prizes for coming second in war, there's no consolation for us in being right but late. We've all of us been far too slow to see the way in which rich and powerful people are using the technological, commercial, and legal environment to create a kind of plutocratic world order in which their power can't be scrutinized, let alone challenged. So please, all of you, act with urgency. As journalists, we all understand the importance of deadlines. I'm not speaking personally here, as my editors will attest. But on this one, we're up against the greatest deadline of all. I wish we'd started this earlier, 10, 20 years ago. But please, let's not delay anymore. This is the biggest story of all. Let's not miss it.